And so I want you to make welcome tonight again Dr. Grady McMurtry as he comes to share with us.
I know that there it is. See, God just had to flip a switch someplace. That's okay. We'll get new batteries in it tomorrow night. I was talking about my pacemaker. No, I don't have a pacemaker. Well, after all that dreary news and weather report Pastor just gave us, good evening. Good evening. Right? It's the evening the Lord has made, whether it's rainy, whether it's foggy, whether it's gloom and dark at night, we will persevere. Is that correct? Yeah. And tonight we're going to be talking about the issue of time. Now, tomorrow night we're going to be talking about, quote, the road to man, unquote, question mark, question mark, question mark. We're going to show you how there's no truth to human evolution whatsoever, and if you will come tomorrow night, I can teach a child how to prove that humans did not evolve from apes. And I promise you, if you'll come tomorrow night, the last 10 minutes, you will see this, enjoy it so much, you will shake my hand on the way out and thank me for getting you here on a Tuesday night. I promise you this. Hello? I'm a man of my word, too. Now, tonight we're going to be talking about why I believe in a young creation. What we're going to be looking at is just a few simple, easy to see reasons why the Earth, the universe, the galaxy are, in fact, young. Now, remember that I used to be an evolutionist. They taught me about millions and billions of years. I taught others about millions and billions of years. But the fact of the matter is, it's simply not true. Of course, you will hear many things in school, radio, TV, movies, and so forth about these millions and billions of years, but they never really happened. Remember that evolutionists date things by their religion, not by scientific fact. Have you ever thought about that? When somebody tells you this rock or this fossil is 100 million years old, the first question you want to ask them is, were you there? Yeah. How do you know that's true? What proof do you have that they're that old? You see, think with me for a minute. Is there anything about a rock that will tell you how old it is? Is there anything about the size, feel, shape, smell, taste, weight, specific gravity, chemical composition, density? Is there anything about a rock that will tell you how old it is? The answer is, of course, no. There's nothing about a rock that will tell you how old it is. I can go outside right now, pick up any rock I can find. I can claim any age I want to for it. You may disagree with me, but you cannot prove I'm wrong. Did you hear that? I can claim any age I want to for it. You may disagree with me, but you cannot prove scientifically that I'm wrong. Think with me, when you pick up rocks, do they come with little white strings, little white tags attached saying, I'm 10 million years old, and signed by a scientist who was there at the time? Excuse me? No? Think with me for just a moment. I was once asked to write an article for a Christian magazine. Now, when you're asked to write an article for a publication, sometimes they give you the title, ask you to write the article. Sometimes they say, get your own title, write your own article. But in this particular occasion, I was asked to write an article for this title. The title was to be, How Do You Date a Rock? My first response was, first you have to ask her. I think the guys got that anyway. Hello? There's nothing about a rock that will tell you how old it is. And so what we want to see about tonight is the following. Here's a rock that we found not too long ago. Hello? Folks, you got to watch the screens. Things will happen when you're not expecting them, okay? But here's a rock we found a little while ago. Now tell me, when we found that rock, did it have a little white string, a little white tag attached saying how old it was? No. So how do we know how old? Or can we determine a way to figure out how old it is? What we're looking at tonight is, are the Earth and the universe really billions of years old, as evolutionists claim, as I at one time taught myself? Or are they, in fact, young? Think with me for just a moment. Is the Earth, the universe old? Did it all start with a Big Bang? Now, I'd like to say two things about this. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, please tell me, when was the last time you saw an explosion construct a building? I'm sorry, was that too fast for you guys? Come on, it's a simple question. When was the last time you saw an explosion construct a building? Never, and you never will. Is that correct? The concept of the Big Bang is itself simply illogical, unreasonable, unscientific. The fact of the matter is, and whether you realize this or not, but recently, evolutionists actually disproved the Big Bang themselves. And today, major evolutionists who used to believe in a Big Bang no longer do. You have to remember the Big Bang theories actually came around about 100 years ago. They're really quite new. And the Big Bang was never actually proved. It was just a poor hypothesis. And recently, evolutionists have disproved the Big Bang themselves, and many of them have abandoned it today. If you'd like the information, you can go to my website, creationworldview.org, and there's an article there, and it's easy to find. There's a little Google search engine there. You just type in Big Bang, it'll take you right to the article, and you can read it yourself. Remember that all of our scientific stuff is really for anyone to read, except one small section clearly marked as technical papers. But the rest of the whole thing is for everybody. So the Big Bang, in fact, has been disproven. But think with me, evolutionists will still be teaching it in school. Now, why do they continue to teach it in your public schools? Simply because they have nothing else to replace it. Even though it's been disproven, they know if it's not true, then there's a God, and that's the one thing they cannot allow. And what we're looking at tonight is this, and never say I'm not up to date. Is the universe 13.82 billion years old, as evolutionists claim? I think you have to understand something, folks. I always like to emphasize 13.2. You know why they put the 2 there, right? It's to make you think they measured it. But I find it very interesting. This is the most recent date they have chosen. But if you were to go back 5 years ago, they would have said it was 13.7. You see, every year or two, they change it. Hello? Because they don't know. And what we're looking at is, the Earth, the universe, and so forth, are they billions of years old? Is the universe 13.82 billion years old? Or is it all, in fact, only 6,000 years old, as the Bible says? Well, let's take a little look at this issue. You see, when you tell somebody that you believe the Earth and the universe are, in fact, young, I know exactly what's going to happen because I have to deal with this every day of my life. You walk up to somebody and you say, I believe the Earth and the universe are 6,000 years old. They're going to say, but wait. But wait. You can't believe that. They'll say it's millions and billions of years old. Is that right? Think with me. They're going to say, doesn't it have to be old because? Now, ladies and gentlemen, depending upon the person you're talking to, depending upon their education, their personal beliefs, experiences, age, and so forth, they're going to tell you it's old, and they're going to give you a list of why they think it's old. They're going to give you this list, and therefore, depending upon the person, the list will be longer or shorter. It may contain some of the items I'm going to share with you tonight, maybe others, right? It just depends on the individual. But they're going to say, doesn't have to be old because. And they're going to say, what about this? Doesn't it take millions, billions of years for rocks to form in the ground? Or, what about diamonds and other gemstones to form? What about stalactites and stalagmites? Doesn't that take a long time? Or what about polar ice caps to form? Again, environmental terrorists will tell you that the polar ice caps are millions and millions of years old. But tonight we're going to find out it's not true. Or, how about thousands of feet of sedimentary rock layers to form? What about deep canyons to be cut into rock layers? For instance, we have a presentation on Mount St. Helens available on DVD. It's really quite interesting. You may say, why would I want to take a look at a relatively small volcano in southwest corner of Washington State in this context? But what you'll see is that that little volcano in 1980 proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that geological features change rapidly and not slowly. For instance, we saw a canyon 1/40th the size of the Grand Canyon in Arizona form in one day. Hello? It doesn't take a long time. Also, what about dinosaur fossils to form? Doesn't that take millions of years? You know, I grew up, now, yesterday I mentioned that I grew up on the campus of the University of California, Berkeley, but it's much worse than that. You see, when I wasn't learning about evolution in the public school system, and that's all they taught in Berkeley back in the 50s, I assure you, but when I wasn't in school learning evolution, I used to spend my time in the paleontology laboratories at the University of California, Berkeley, learning about dinosaurs, fossils, evolutionary theory from PhDs when I was only in elementary school. I learned about these things so well that when I hit the 3rd grade, they started borrowing me from one classroom to the other in the California public school system. And I used to teach the other children about dinosaurs, fossils, evolutionary theory, because I knew more about it than the teachers did. That is an absolutely true story, I assure you. And Wednesday night, when I talk about dinosaurs, I think you'll admit I've got an interesting background to do it. Hello? But also, what about coal-to-form? After all, again, evolutionists will tell you that most of the Earth's coal formed during the Carboniferous period, and they say that was 300 to 360 million supposed years ago. But is that true? Well, tonight you're going to find out, no, it's not true. Or what about wood to fossilize? Same thing, petrified forests around the world, supposedly, millions and millions of years old. Is that correct? But depending upon the person you're talking to, they may list some of these or others and so forth, but almost every single one of them will say, doesn't it have to be millions and billions of years old because... What about light reaching us from distant stars and distant galaxies? Doesn't that take a long time? Well, the fact of the matter is, no, it doesn't. Now, I say it all has to be young, and it all has to be young because... Now, we have different DVDs, books, and so forth on this subject. I have 3 DVDs addressing issues of the young Earth, young universe myself. But I always like to start off with this particular presentation. So we have others, but this one I like to start off, particularly appealing to the ladies. So ladies, are you listening to me? Yes. Ladies, that was really weak. Yes. Let me assure you, ladies, I am here to help you tonight. So ladies, are you listening? Yes. Thank you. May I ask, ladies, how many of you like the bling? Come on, folks, that's the local slang term for gemstones, okay? So, ladies, I'm here to help you tonight. So, how many of you ladies like the bling? Sir, why are you raising your hand for her? That's what I want to know. I take your word for it, I mind you, but... Well, let's take a look at a rock. Ladies, what about this rock? Oh, come on, ladies, that's a nice rock. That is a natural opal from Australia, mined by hand. Now, you've got to admit, that's a pretty rock, right? Sure enough. Thank you, sir. Well, according to evolutionists, it takes millions of years for an opal to form in the ground. However, this is not a man-made opal. This is a man-grown opal. That opal was grown in that jar right there. And you can't even tell the difference chemically or under an electron scanning microscope. Usually the next thing I hear from the ladies is, what's the formula? Think with me for just a moment. We're looking at, does it take millions of years for gemstones like opals and diamonds to form? Or what about gold? How many of you will admit, you hear about gold almost every day in radio, TV advertisements, right? And evolutionists, again, will tell you it takes millions of years for gold deposits to form. Not true, but take a little look. This is another natural opal from Australia, mined by hand. Now, ladies, you got to admit, that's a right pretty rock, right? Yeah, Well, again, this is a man-grown opal. It was grown in that jar. You can even see it growing in that lens right there. Is that correct? And it only took 3 months. Now, do any of you actually have real, natural opal jewelry? Anybody here? We have 1, 2 hands. Men, I hope you're watching. Only 2 of the ladies have real opal jewelry. Men, hello. Valentine's Day is coming, Just a word to the wise. But think with me. Now, I do want you to know, if you have real opal jewelry, it's real. This is an experiment done by a Christian creation-believing scientist. He doesn't grow them and then sell them on the market. He's a man of integrity. But he found out if you take the right chemicals, put them in a jar, put them on a shelf, you can grow an opal in 3 months. So tell me, does it take millions of years? Okay, now I appreciate your response, I really do, but the correct answer for all those questions tonight is this: not a chance. So, does it take millions of years to get an opal? Not a chance. Thank you very much. That's very good. Well, let's take another look. Apparently you don't like opals. What about that rock right there? Oh, come on, ladies. That's a nice rock. That is the Hope Diamond at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. That's a nice rock. It's the world's largest blue diamond. Now, evolutionists again will tell you that diamonds take millions and millions of years to form in the ground. As a matter of fact, they say that they're formed deep in the ground and that they come up from deep in the ground through volcanic vents primarily and so forth. And they said it takes millions and millions of years. But if you will just think about that for a moment, you know that that is actually not true. You know already that that's not true because you know, if you just think about it for a moment, since 1953, we have been able to make man-made diamonds. Now, these are not gem-quality diamonds. These are industrial-grade diamonds, but they are real diamonds. When you see people working on roadways and cutting concrete and asphalt and things like that, they're using stones that are covered with man-made diamonds. Again, not gem-quality, but they are real diamonds. And we've been able to do that since 1953. So it doesn't take millions of years. Would you agree with that? However, how many of you know that in the year 2003, we started making gem-quality diamonds, and it only took a matter of minutes? Hello? Now, please notice that on many of the slides, I will give the citations. This comes from Nature magazine. Nature magazine is the single highest scientific journal in the world for evolutionists, published in the United Kingdom. If you are an evolutionist and you can get your paper published in Nature, you have made the A list. Are you with me here? So I am not afraid to quote evolutionary sources. And in 2003, we started making gem-quality diamonds in only a matter of minutes. The problem was it took incredibly high pressures and very high temperatures. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, if you know anything about a scientist, you know that once we learn how to do something, the next two questions are, how do you do it cheaper, faster, or both? Hello? So only 13 months later, 2004, we started making gem-quality diamonds in only 12 hours, but at much lower temperatures and much lower pressures, published in New Scientist, a totally evolutionary publication. How are you doing so far? But of course, if you know anything about a scientist, you know that once we learn how to do something, the next two questions are, how do you do it cheaper, faster, or both, correct? In the year 2006, we started making 10-carat pure gem-quality diamonds in one day. Now, men, I hope you were listening, because I can tell you the ladies will be. Today, for example, you could go to, I'd go to Asheville, you could go to Atlanta, Chattanooga. You can go into a jewelry store today, and you have a choice between a natural diamond and a man-made diamond of equal quality. But the man-made diamond will be 15 to 50% cheaper. Hello? Just fair warning, guys. However, I am not finished yet, because if you know anything about a scientist, you know that once we learn how to do something, the next two questions are, how do you do it cheaper, faster, or both? Is that correct? Now, men, you really want to pay attention to this, because never say I am not up to date. In the year 2015, we started making pure small diamonds in only 8 hours using nothing but a common oxyacetylene torch used in a body shop. Hello? Come on, guys. I'm trying to help you out here. And what about gold? You hear an awful lot about gold these days, is that right? Now, on the DVD of tonight's presentation, I actually have a piece of information about how gold formations happen very, very quickly. That the massive gold deposit at Papua New Guinea could have formed in as little as 5 hours. That's on the DVD. However, I have a newer piece of information for you tonight. We now know that gold actually forms in the ground instantaneously, less than a few tenths of a second, through earthquakes. Now, I'm going to ask you a serious question, and I don't ask trick questions, ladies and gentlemen, I don't. How many of you would like to be worth $1 billion tomorrow? Okay, I'll repeat. This is not a trick question. How many of you would like to be worth $1 billion tomorrow? I am going to tell you how, and I am serious. You raise a child, a grandchild, or a great-grandchild that can figure out how to get the gold out of seawater, you will be worth $1 billion tomorrow, I guarantee it. There's enough gold dissolved in the oceans of the world to make everyone in here a billionaire many times over. Hello? The problem is nobody can figure how to get it out. But think with me, groundwater also has dissolved gold in it. And when we have earthquakes, the sudden rapid pressure change causes the water to turn to steam and gold is deposited out of the water. Hello? So it doesn't take millions of years to get gold deposits. Hello? Well, let's go on to stalactites and stalactites. Now, how many of you have been to caves anywhere along the East Coast, wherever it may be, that have stalactites and stalagmites? Come on, if you've been underground, be proud, right? Hello? How about you got none of you? Oh, you've missed your opportunity. Let me ask you a question. When you went to those caves, and maybe it was Luray, Virginia, Mammoth, Kentucky, maybe you went to Carlsbad Caverns, whatever. But when you went to those caves, tell me, didn't the guide tell you two things? Yeah. Didn't the guide bring you up to the entrance of the cave and say to you, it takes 10, 20 million years to get a cave like this? Yeah. Folks, the correct response there was, ooh. Okay, everybody ready? It takes 10, 20 million years to get a cave like this. And the second question, sir, was, don't touch that. Yeah. Right. It'll take 1,000 years to grow back. Yep. Exactly right. And he says he was told that. So we have a witness. Now, but tonight, let's take a look. Does it really take 10 million, 20 million years to get a limestone cave? Good one. See, he remembered the correct answer. He just didn't know the reason yet. But let me give you a reason. Ladies and gentlemen, I can literally do a 1-hour presentation showing you pictures of caves around the world, including the basement of government buildings. Hello? Where stalactites have formed quickly. You can go today out and take a look under a bridge, and you will find stalactites. The fact of the matter is this. We're going to just show you two examples looking at do stalactites, stalagmites grow slowly. Now, just two examples, but this is a photograph taken inside a limestone cave in the Yucatan Peninsula. This is native Mayan Indian pottery here, and we know that this pottery is approximately 1,300 years old. So this man-made pottery was left in this limestone cave. The Yucatan Peninsula is just honeycombed with limestone caves. And so let's think. Do you see this object right here? That is a stalagmite on top of this man-made pottery. Is that correct? And it only took about 1,300 years to form. So does it take millions of years to get a stalactite, stalagmite? No, wait a minute. See, you had the right answer previously. The right answer was not a chance. But I will show you a second example to sort of solidify that. Now, this is a man-made cave, or technically it's a tunnel, dug into a basaltic hill in Australia in 1857. It is 160 foot long. But here we see in this picture beautiful curtain stalactites here, beautiful flowstone here. Is that correct? But all of these formations formed in only 140 years. This picture was taken in 1997, and in only 140 years, all of that beautiful stone had formed. So does it really take millions of years to get stalactites, stalagmites? Not a chance. And let's talk about the polar ice caps. Now, again, there are environmental terrorists out there who are trying to convince you, first of all, that the Earth is warming. It's not. It's been cooling for the last 20 years. This is good science, by the way. Lack of sunspot activity right now. We're at the point of going into a solar minimum. If you think it's cold now, just wait another year or two. Typically, it will go back up again and the Earth will warm, but you never know. It might not. Back in about 1650, the sunspots went away for 50 years. That was considered to be the bottom of the Little Ice Age. There was another period like that between 1800 and 1830. During that time, the Thames River in London froze over. They had what they called frost fairs, and they would set up kiosks selling hot cross buns while people skated on the river. We only came out of the Little Ice Age in 1895. Now tell me something. If we just came out of the Little Ice Age in 1895, wouldn't you think it would be a little warmer right now than it used to be? Oh, yeah. But the Earth has been warmer than it is now. It's been colder than it is now. It's totally normal, natural, cyclical things. And only God can control the weather. Come on, folks. If you read the Bible, you'll find at least 36 verses where God says He's in charge of the weather. We can't change it if we tried to. I'll give you one, Amos 4:7, by the way. God says He can make it rain on one side of the street and not on the other. And I bet you've seen that, haven't you? Aha. Genesis 8:22, seasons will not cease. Hello? Now, in Antarctica, Russian scientists have drilled all the way through, cored all the way through the polar ice cap in Antarctica, what is referred to as the Vostok hole. In Russian, Vostok means east or eastern. Vladivostok is simply the eastern port in Russia, next to Japan. And they say that in drilling down through the polar ice caps, they have counted 400,000 little lines in the polar ice caps. At the Dome C location, 800,000 lines. And American scientists have drilled all the way through the polar ice cap in Greenland. Russian scientists have drilled all the way through the polar ice cap in Antarctica. Do you know what the American scientists found underneath the ice cap in Greenland? I like your style, but no. What they found was leaf litter and dead insects. Greenland used to be green. Hello? And of course, evolutionists want you to believe that these little lines in the ice represent like tree rings, that each little line represents a year. And they say, well, we counted 400,000 lines, therefore this ice must be 400,000 years old or 800,000 years old and so forth. Is that correct? But it's not true, as you'll see tonight. First of all, it isn't true because, think with me, how many of you have opened up a refrigerator freezer door and you have seen two ice cubes melting together in the freezer, right? Because ice sublimes, correct? It flows even in a frozen state. The truth of the matter is they didn't count all those lines. You see, you can count the lines in the upper half of the polar ice caps. They're there. But as you get into the middle, the weight of the ice becomes so massive that it compresses those little lines to the point of invisibility. You can't see them from halfway down to the bottom. They just extrapolated the information, but they didn't actually count them. And when I was an evolutionist, I used to believe that all those little lines represented a year, that they were just like tree rings in a tree and so forth, but I don't believe it anymore, and I would like to show you why. I'm a very evidence-based kind of guy. So let's take a little look. What I'm going to do is ask those of you here in the room, in your minds, just come with me back to World War II, to the year 1942. I realize that some of you can remember that, but the rest of you just come on back with me, okay? Hello? Well, in 1942, two Boeing B-17 medium-range bombers and 6 Lockheed P-38 Lightning fighters took off from the United States to go to England to be a part of the war effort. And these planes cannot fly directly to England. They don't have the fuel. We don't have the mid-air refueling that we do today and so forth. And they cannot fly directly across the Atlantic. So what must they do? Well, if you cannot fly directly across the Atlantic, you have to fly around the Atlantic. And what do? You go to Bangor, Maine, you fuel up. You go to Newfoundland, then the southwest corner of Greenland, then Iceland, and eventually you will work your way to England. And these 8 planes took off from the United States, got to the southwest corner of Greenland, fueled up, continued to fly over the polar ice cap of Greenland, over the water, going towards Iceland, and they ran right into a whiteout blizzard. Now, how many of you are familiar with a whiteout blizzard? Hello? You see, they couldn't land in Iceland because they couldn't find Iceland. Hello? So they had to turn back, and they had only 2 choices because they did not have enough fuel to get back to the base in southwest Greenland. The 2 choices were they could either ditch in the water and die in 5 minutes, a la Titanic, or they could land on the polar ice cap of Greenland on a glacier. Now, I'll bet you know which one of the 2 they did. Is that right? Uh-huh. Now, the first plane went in with the wheels down, attempting to land on the ice. When it hit the ice, it flipped over. Now, any pilot will tell you that's a bad landing. The other 7 planes went in with the wheels up. They just belly landed on the ice. The planes were damaged. It took 9 days for the crews to be rescued, but they were rescued. The planes were simply left there, though, because in 1942 it was cheaper, faster to just build new planes. They weren't worth getting. And so they were simply left there. But in 1986, some very enterprising men from the state of Kentucky remembered that those planes were up there. And those planes are now worth something because, you see, there's a lot of money in antique military aircraft. There's so little of them. And so a good venture. They were going to go up and get those planes. Remember, it has only been 46 years, right? Now, the evolutionists want you to believe that these little lines in the polar ice caps represent a year. Is that right? And it has only been 46 years. So they took brooms, shovels up to Greenland to get these planes and bring them back. It was really a good venture. I would like to ask you, would you please tell me how much ice and snow did they find? Oh, I need to say something. The planes do not sink into the ice. Where they landed is where they stayed. Okay, so the planes don't sink into the ice. But please tell me, how much ice and snow did they find on top of the planes when they found them? Could somebody, I mean, you got some, we'll have a little auction here. How much ice and snow was there? Come on, it's only been 46 years. What was that, sir? Sir, you can only have one bid. 15 feet. Thank you. I have an opening bid of 15 feet. Now, sir, it's only been 46 years. That's supposed to be a year. Are you sure you want to bid that high? Okay, we have an affirmation. He's bidding 15 feet. Do I have another bid? 4 feet. Okay, sir, apparently you have been watching The Price is Right. Anybody else? One more third bid? Anybody?
450 feet.
Now, sir, please. I was going to say, I mean, I like you and everything, but would you really like to do that? Okay, well, 400 feet. Okay, so we have 4, 15, and 400. Well, 2 of you are way low, the other one is way over. The fact of the matter is we actually found 250 feet of ice and snow on top of the planes. You see, when they got to Greenland, they knew where the planes were supposed to be, but they couldn't find them. They had to get ice-penetrating radar, found the planes 250 to 270 feet below the surface. They had to come home, get equipment that would melt holes through the ice, literally that big, melting a hole all the way down to the planes. Ladies and gentlemen, this photograph is a Lockheed P-38, 250 feet below the surface. They got down to it, then they melted around it to take this picture. This particular plane was in such good condition, they literally disassembled her, brought her up the hole, brought her back to Kentucky, and today she is flying. Hello? But let's do a little math. Ladies and gentlemen, let's think. 46 years, 250 feet. That means the ice and snow was forming on top of the planes at an average of 5.4 foot per year. At that rate, you would get the 3,000 meters of ice in the polar ice cap in only about 2,000 years. Hello? Now, I grew up in the Sierras of California where there's serious snow. You know, those mountains go up to 14,000 feet. I think you're familiar with a little ice and snow around here, of course, too. But in California, in the mountains, we used to plow. You know, around here, they put the brine down and all that. But how many of you have ever been, perhaps further north, and in a location where they plowed the snow? A few of you, right? Now, let me ask you a question. They plowed in the Sierras. Those of you that raised your hand, would you agree after they plowed the snow, it looked a little bit like that? Is that correct? Thank you. Please take a look. This is what happens just during the winter. Layers build up with dirt layers in between. Ladies and gentlemen, if you simply compress this down, it looks exactly like the lines in the polar ice caps. And today I am absolutely convinced that those little lines in the polar ice caps do not represent annual tree rings, that in fact they represent individual storms. And that is much more scientific. Now, I said that this plane was still flying. I was teaching in New England just a few years ago, and I happened to be in the areas of Bangor when this plane, referred to as Glacier Girl, happened to be visiting Bangor. I didn't know she was going to be there. I just coincidentally think. But when I found out she was in town, I went over and took several pictures of her. I would like to show you what the plane that looked like that looks like today. Today, she looks like that. One of the few flying P-38s in the world. I don't know about you, but I think she looks pretty good for an old girl, don't you? I love her. I really do. Well, it doesn't take millions of years to get polar ice caps. Is that right? Oh, come on, folks. Not a chance. Okay. Now, what about radiometric dating processes? Do they prove that rocks are billions of years old? Now, if I use a word that I think some of you might not know, I always want to define it for you. Please understand that. So when we talk about this big old fancy stuff like radiometric dating, what are we really talking about? Well, if you simply break it down, it's very simple to understand these things. So radiometric refers to the use, supposedly, of the decay of radioactive materials to supposedly measure the number of years it has been since a creature lived or an event occurred. And so radiometric, the supposed use of the decay of radioactive materials to supposedly measure the amount of time that it has been since an event occurred or creature lived. And somebody mentioned carbon-14 already. All of you have heard of carbon-14. Now, that is not the only one, but that is one of various radiometric dating processes. However, it's the one most people know about because, after all, if you watch Star Trek or something, you know that we are carbon-based units. Yeah. Don't watch that, huh? Okay. But think with me for just a moment. Actually, there are many different methods. There's potassium argon, rubidium strontium, uranium lead. There are many of these methods, but absolutely none of them work. And any knowledgeable evolutionist knows they don't work. For example, the use of carbon-14 or other radiometric dating processes, none of them work. All of them have at least 6 fatal false assumptions. Carbon-14 has 20. Now, how can you use something that has 6 or 20 fatal false assumptions and possibly end up with a reliable date? Hello? Not a chance. There is only one thing that carbon-14 is actually good for. It is totally and utterly unreliable. I have an entire hour-long presentation on DVD out there where I show just some, I list all 20 errors, but I show some great examples. For instance, we took the feather off of a live emperor penguin. No bird was hurt in this experiment. Hello? And we carbon dated the feather. According to carbon-14, the bird that we had just taken the feather off died 8,000 years ago. In the state of Alaska, we found 2 mammoths buried in the ice side by side. We carbon-14 dated the 2 carcasses. According to carbon-14, though they were buried side by side, they had died thousands of years apart. Hello? Apparently that's not good enough. We found another mammoth frozen in the ice in Alaska. We carbon dated the skin and we carbon dated the flesh. And according to carbon-14, the 2 had died thousands of years apart. I don't know about you. I think it's a problem when your skin dies thousands of years before you do. These things simply don't work. The only thing that carbon-14 is good for is proving scientifically that the Earth is young. Carbon-14 breaks down very, very quickly. Carbon-14 has a half-life of 5,730 years. That means that every 5,730 years, 50% of what's there will decay, leaving the balance. Now, ladies and gentlemen, just for your benefit, carbon-14 gets to a point where we cannot measure it beyond 100,000 years. Theoretically, it goes to 0 in 250,000 years, but the most sensitive instrument we have on Earth today cannot measure carbon-14 beyond 17 and 1/2 half-lives. For your benefit, that's supposedly 103,000 years. But here's the kicker. We cannot find a carbon deposit on Earth. We cannot find coal, oil, natural gas, carbonaceous clays. We cannot find a carbon deposit on Earth that does not have significant measurable carbon-14. So the coal that they say formed 300 to 360 million years ago, which should have no carbon-14 in it whatsoever, would already have gone. As a matter of fact, if somebody tells you that they have measured, say, the age of dinosaur bones as 75 million years old using carbon-14, the first thing I want you to do is look them right straight in the eye and laugh hysterically. Come on, practice. If we can't measure it beyond 100,000 years, how can you possibly date something millions of years old? You see, carbon-14 wouldn't stay around that long, and yet we cannot find coal, oil, natural gas, carbonaceous clays on Earth that do not have measurable, significant carbon-14. That means they all have to be much younger and have to be less than 100,000 years old, but that's consistent with an Earth that's 6,000 and a flood that occurred 4,500 years ago. Hello? And, well, the flood itself would have changed the carbon cycle on Earth, giving us a 21st reason why carbon-14 doesn't work. The flood itself would have changed the carbon balance on Earth, thereby changing the decays and so forth, the ratios. So this also throws off. So we have 20 scientific reasons and one biblical reason why carbon-14 doesn't work. But let me ask you a question, ladies and gentlemen. There are these many different methods. But if they did work, and I use the word if, but if they did work, please tell me, if you could use two different methods on the same rock, you would expect to get approximately the same result. Is that correct? Now, I'm not asking for perfection. Please understand that, okay? But if they worked, you'd expect to get approximately the same result. Is that correct? And so if the dates, say, were within 5% of the same number, you would say they appear to work. Is that right? Okay, that was 4 of you. The rest of you apparently want to negotiate. How about 10%? If they were within 10%, would you say that they appeared to work? I got 3 more votes. Okay, how about 15%? If they were within 15%, you would say they appear to work. You guys are tough to negotiate with. Apparently, you've already figured this out. In fact, there are major contradictions between 2 methods used on the same rock. Now, I have a DVD out there, 1 hour on potassium argon, why it doesn't work, and excellent examples showing how off it is, and 1 hour-long presentation on carbon-14. Tonight, I can only give you 3 examples for the sake of time and so forth, but let me give you just 3. Number 1, this is Sunset Crater National Monument in Arizona. This is south and east of the Grand Canyon. If you're ever out that way, it's a beautiful spot. This is a relatively small volcano. The cinders at the top, however, this orange-red color just makes it glow at sunset, which is where it gets the name. But as you drive into the monument, you will pass the foundations of ancient Indian dwellings. There are trails going out to the east where there are Indian cave dwellings in the past. So we know that, in fact, approximately how long ago it's been since its eruption, it's not that tough to figure out. This thing erupted about 900 years ago, and we know that Native American Indians were there at the time. First of all, we know Native American Indians, if you know anything about Arizona, New Mexico, and so forth, they've been there for 3,000-4,000 years. And we know that they were there when this volcano erupted because inside the cinder cones, lava flows from the volcano, we found Native Indian artifacts. So we know they were there, is that right? Now, when you date volcanic materials, according to evolutionists, you would use the potassium argon method. And so what we did was we took some samples, we sent it away to a lab, we didn't tell them where the materials came from, we simply paid them to do the test. And they came back and told us this material that we know to be approximately 900 years old was actually 210 to 230,000 years old. I don't know about you, I think that's more than 15%. How about you? Hello? Second example. This is a piece of lava from Australia, but inside this piece of volcanic rock, we found wood, but it was charcoal. You see, along the east coast of Australia, they have these volcanoes, and a volcano erupted, the lava flowed down the side of the mountain, surrounding live, upright trees, killing the trees. But it also surrounded pieces of dead wood on the forest floor. Now, this lava completely surrounded this piece of wood. There's no possibility of contamination, and the heat of the rock caused the wood to turn into charcoal, correct? Now, obviously, this is carbon, so we can use the carbon-14 method. This is volcanic rock, so supposedly we use the potassium-argon method, right? Now, I do not agree with these dates. You understand, I believe the Earth and the universe are 6,000 years old, right? But I'm simply telling you what the laboratories gave as a result, paid to do the tests. The lab that did the test on the charcoal here came up with a carbon-14 date of 45,000 years old. I don't agree with it, but that's what they got, okay? But the lab that did the potassium-argon date on the rock came up with a date of 44 million years old. I think you'll agree that's more than 15% different. One last example, and if you were here last night, it will really have helped you. You don't have to see these or listen to these presentations in any order, but we did try to do something for you that was logical this week. So if you remember the maps I showed you, right? Okay. My third example, this is Hawaii, the Big Island, 1801. Now, the Hawaiian Island volcanoes are not known for massive explosive force, such as Mount St. Helens. The Hawaiian Island volcanoes are known for massive amounts of lava flow. So they're not big exploders, but they produce massive amounts of lava. And some of these volcanoes have been erupting for decades and decades on a continuous basis. Now, in 1801, there were people here to witness this particular eruption. Now, here is a drawing, and remember I talked about how there were underwater volcanoes in the Indian Ocean, correct? Now, in the Pacific, north of the equator, there are 20,000 underwater volcanoes just on the north floor of the Pacific Ocean. And here we see underwater volcanoes illustrated, correct? And this is going to represent, here's a volcano sticking out of the water, it's going to represent our Hawaiian Island, okay? Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am not a proud or boastful person whatsoever, but I would like you to have at least a little appreciation at how difficult it is to make some of these slides, okay? So if you'll look at the slide very carefully, in 1801 there was an eruption. Apparently you missed it. The correct response was, ah. So here we go. Ready? 1801 there was an eruption. Much better, much better. Now, this was a massive lava flow. It came out of the top of the volcano, went down the side of the volcano into the Pacific Ocean, continued to go all the way down the side of the volcano to the ocean floor, 2.6 miles down. We got a bright idea just a few years ago. We said, let's send a robot down this lava flow. Let's take some samples and see what we get using the potassium-argon method. And we used the robot to go much deeper than a human being could go, okay? Now, we sent that robot down 0.8 of a mile into the Pacific Ocean, took a sample here, brought it back, and got a potassium-argon date of 0 million years old. Now, I would like you to know that technically that is correct. Technically, that is correct. You see, carbon-14 breaks down very, very quickly. It's supposedly only good for hundreds, thousands, maybe tens of thousands, is absolutely no good with millions. But potassium-argon is exactly the opposite. It breaks down very, very slowly. And so it's only good on millions. It's not good on thousands, okay? And so since this material, if you'll agree, it's only 217 years old, then 0 million would technically be correct, right? He said, okay, let's send it on down a couple of miles. So we sent that robot down a couple of miles, took a sample, came back, got a potassium-argon date of 12 million years old. For material that we know is 217 years old. How y'all doing? I don't know about you, I think I see more than a 15% difference here, is that right? And we said, well, that is interesting. Let's send it all the way down to the bottom. So we sent that robot down 2.6 miles, came back, received a potassium argon date of 21 million years old for material that we know is 217 years old. How y'all doing? Do you see that these things simply don't work? And any knowledgeable evolutionist knows that they don't work, and that's why they don't use them. They don't. You come Wednesday night, and I'll show you how they actually do date rocks. But they don't use these modern technologies because they know they don't work. And I was talking about coal earlier. By the way, any of you, for instance, happen to have come from originally or lived in the state of Michigan? Anybody? Michiganer? Thank you, sir. This photograph comes from northern Michigan, so be proud. Come on. And what you see here is a pure layer of anthracite coal, approximately 2 foot thick. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you only find natural coal, natural oil, natural gas between layers of sedimentary rock. You only find natural gas, oil, coal between layers of sedimentary rock. Now, you remember from school there's only 3 kinds of natural rock. You have igneous, metamorphic, and sedimentary. But the word sedimentary comes from the word sediment, correct? And so sedimentary rock simply means layers of dried out mud. That is a perfectly valid scientific definition of sedimentary rock. It is simply layers of dried out mud. And if you look at the photograph carefully, you will in fact see layers of dried out mud below and above. Is that correct? Now, this is anthracite coal. Anthracite coal is the hardest, densest, blackest, bestest coal there is. It's the really good stuff, okay? Now, I would like you to think with me. Anybody who knows anything about coal formation will tell you it takes 10 foot of dead plant and wood material all in one place, all at one time, compressed down to 1 foot to get anthracite coal. If you compress it, 2 to 1, you'll get brown lignites. You compress it 5, 6 to 1, you'll get bituminous medium-grade coals. But to get anthracite, you've got to compress it 10 to 1. Hello? Here's the problem. In the states of Utah, Colorado, and Wyoming, we have pure layers of anthracite coal that are 200 and 300 foot thick. Now, that means that in the past there had to be a layer of dead plant and wood material all in one place, all at one time, without decay, 2,000 feet thick and 3,000 feet thick, with enough mud on top of that to compress them down to 200 and 300 feet. And I would suggest to you that only a worldwide flood could do that.
That's right.
Hello? And you will find the darndest things in coal. And I mean that. You'll find the darndest things in coal. Now, if you'll come on Wednesday night, I will show you several other things that we have found in coal, but tonight I would just like to show you one example. For example, what about this dinner bell? I call it a dinner bell. It's the size of a dinner bell. But this was found in 1944 in medium-grade coal in the state of West Virginia. But the coal, according to evolutionists, is more than 300 million years old. Anybody here see a problem with this? Now, the bell is made out of a very unique alloy, unknown in manufacturing today, but it is obvious somebody knew how to do it. Is that correct? Now, if you will turn the bell up and look inside, the clapper is made out of iron, but the bell itself is a most unique alloy. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if something is a fact, scientifically valid fact, I will simply state it. If something is my opinion or personal speculation, I will always label it as such. Are we good? What is the fact? This is a bell made by human beings prior to the flood of Noah. During the flood, it was incorporated in plant and wood debris from the flood, buried in material that became coal. That's a fact. Now, this is my personal speculation. I'm not trying to convince you. I would like you to make your own, decision upon this. But I'm going to show you the top of the bell up close and personal. Please tell me, this is what the top looks like. In my opinion, I believe that this was a bell used in pagan worship before the flood. I cannot prove that. It is my personal opinion, and I want you to decide for yourself. But I will tell you that my opinion is based on some pretty good information. Ladies and gentlemen, recent archaeological diggings at Babel and in India have shown bells of very similar shape. Hello? But it is only my opinion. You decide for yourself. Now, we're going to have to stop. I know the prelims for the game is on TV right now, and we do want to be mindful of that. And I'm not going to get as far as I would like tonight, but there is at least one more slide I would like to share with you. Ladies and gentlemen, does it take millions and millions of years for fossils to form in the ground? Now, again, I grew up in the paleontology laboratories at the University of California, Berkeley. They taught me it did. Is that correct? And I taught others, too. But I would like to show you my second most favorite fossil. Now, if you have to come Wednesday night, I will show you my favorite fossil, okay? So this is called a teaser. Hello?
Yep.
So if you want to see my first most favorite fossil, you have to come Wednesday night. Tonight, I would like to show you my second most favorite fossil. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight I would like to introduce you to a fossil teddy bearosaurus. Now, this is a fossil teddy bear. It fossilized in only 4 months. So please tell me, does it take millions and millions of years to get a fossil? Come on, just a little louder. Does it take? Not a chance. Would you like to see where this teddy bear was fossilized? Apparently not. Oh, you would? Oh, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this is called the Dripping or Dropping Well. It's on the River Nid in Yorkshire, England. That's the northeast corner of England, right up against Scotland. Up above, there is a mineral spring, and the mineral water flows down over the edge. The water evaporates, leaving the mineral behind, forming this stone waterfall. The color is algae growing in the water. And if you look very carefully in this photograph, you can even see water dripping in places, but you'd have to probably be a little closer, but you can see it. And what they've done is they've put hooks along the bottom here with this cord across here, and people come along and they hang things on the cord, and they come back and collect them fossilized 4 months later. And I would like you to help me to count the number of teddy bears that are being fossilized at the time that this photograph was taken. Now, I realize it's going to be a little hard, but some of you can see. So let's see, how many teddy bears are there? Well, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Let's see, there's 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. There are 23 teddy bears being fossilized at the time that this photograph was taken. In addition to which, we have a bell, a woman's purse, a teapot, a hat, another hat, and another bell over there. And if any of you could explain this to me, I would really appreciate it, because I have never figured this one out. I'm serious. A plastic lobster. Now, why would you want to fossilize a plastic lobster? Isn't it stiff enough? So does it take millions of years to get a fossil? Now, see, you forgot your line. Come on. Does it take millions of years to get a fossil? Not a chance. And to prove the point even further, please take a look at this photograph. This is a coil of man-made rope. For those of you close enough to the screen, it comes from the Czech Republic. You can actually read it right here. But this man-made coil of rope fossilized in only 2 weeks. But I'm not finished. This is lake country, fishing country, and so forth up here. Now, do we have, I'm not going to call on you, but do we have any fishermen or fisherwomen here? Come on, I need to see fisher people here. Okay, 1, 2, hands up, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, we have about 9 fisher people here. We have to be PC, you know. No, we don't. Now, I'm the least PC guy you've ever met in your life. But the 9 of you, I'm not going to call on you, but you're going to be my witnesses, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, please take a look at this next photograph. And my fisher people here, is that not a fossil fish? Come on, I need witnesses. Yes, you agree. Now, ladies and gentlemen, according to the evolutionary believing paleontologist who found this fossil fish, He said, based upon the evidence that he saw. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to compliment this evolutionist, and I am absolutely, genuinely sincere. I want to compliment this evolutionist. He did not allow his religion to get in the way of a good, solid scientific observation. And when an evolutionist can do that, we need to genuinely compliment them. Are you with me? And I'm absolutely sincere. He said, based upon the condition of this fossil fish and others in the same deposit, that based upon the physical condition, this fish had actually died and was fossilized in 5 hours or less. Now, I go to Brazil once every July, August for a mission trip down there. As I go to Russia twice a year, I go to Brazil once a year. This fossil fish comes from Brazil. This is from what is called the Santana Formation in Brazil. We found fish with fossilized gills, fossilized muscles, fossilized stomachs. According to the report written by this evolutionary paleontologist, quote, what is clear is that the fossilization process took place moments after the fish died and was completed with only a few, probably less than 5 hours, unquote. But this evolutionist went on to write in their report, in this case, quote, instantaneous fossilization, unquote, is suspected to have been the very cause of death. I'm sorry, did you just hear what I just read? He just said this fish died from fossilization, DOA, fossil. So let me ask you, if you can die from it, is it a fast or a slow process? Oh, it's a fast process. Now, there are many, many other things, such as the rate at which the moon is moving away from the Earth. It doesn't take millions of years for starlight to get here from distant stars and galaxies. We have that information available. All kinds of things. The erosion rate of the continents. The sun is spinning too fast. The moon is moving away too quickly. The Earth and the moon are both still hot on the inside, but if they were as old as evolutionists claim, they should both be stone cold at the center. We have spiral galaxies. We have lumpy rings around galaxies, around planets. The fact of the matter is, today, we have over 300 scientific arguments to prove the Earth, the solar system, the galaxy, and the universe are young. If you go to my website, I have 100 little what are called short videos, meaning they are less than 5 minutes long each, most less than 3, some only a minute and a half. But I list over 100 scientific arguments to prove the Earth and the universe are young, consistent with 6,000 years of age. And today we have over 300 total. I'll be producing some more in next month, but the fact of the matter is we have tons of information, scientific proof, that the Earth and the universe are only 6,000 years old, perfectly consistent with the biblical account of creation. How you doing? We do not have to compromise with evolutionary time because it never happened. It's mythological. Hello? Well, I'm sorry we didn't get to more. I really would love to have done some more tonight, but I know some of you want to get home and so forth, but I hope you've enjoyed what you heard. We do have the information available for you. Thank you very much, Pastor. Appreciate it.